a multi-party democracy and governance expert. Those are our guests for the night. Our very own Catherine Simaloy has been our sign language interpreter for the night. She wishes you a fantastic night, even as we begin the People's Court tonight. And we invite your feedback. 22047 is our SMS line. Start with your name, where you're watching us from, followed by your question, feedback, or comment regarding the program tonight. At Muyakane, at Linda_Alela, at George Maringa _ are the handles on X, formerly Twitter. Use the hashtag People's Court, hashtag Daily Report. Welcome to the broadcast. Victor Muyakane, take it away.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us tonight. And to the people at home, thank you so much for choosing us to inform you this evening. No doubt, in the last few weeks, you've noticed what's been happening in our country. The president nominated a number of people to cabinet, and a number of those nominations have caused jitters in the opposition world. Do we still have an opposition? 4 members of the largest party, 83 members, or rather used to have 83 members in the opposition, 4 members of that party have been appointed, rather nominated into cabinet. What impact does this have on the state of the opposition, their ability to hold power to account, their ability to conduct oversight? What does this mean for the state of democracy in this country? We are seeing different members of the coalition in the opposition staking their claim to the role of leader of the opposition. We're going to talk about that and so much more, and what this means to you and I. My name is Victor Muyakane, and you're welcome. Karibu sana. Linda?
Well, as we always say, your position is very, very important, and we have witnessed just how the growth of multipartyism has grown in the country, or perhaps has taken a trajectory in the country. And every single time we're talking about parties, we talk about people as well. Last time I checked, and she's going to confirm that, whether it's so or not.
Yeah.
Ruth Abogo was a typical ODM. Ruth, were you on ODM?
I was in ODM.
Then what happened?
I am now in the official opposition.
That is DAP.
That is DAP.
You know, I almost asked my producer, are you sure this is
Ruth Abogo?
Yeah.
Oh yes. I was welcomed to the party in a very serious ceremony. Yes.
Arnold Maliba's case is probably worse.
Linda, just before you go where you are trying to go, I just need to remind you that Ruth has not left ODM.
Okay.
She's in ODM Western Kenya campus.
No.
It's also called DAP.
You know, Maliba. You know, Maliba will always say that. I'm not in government. We are not in government.
All right.
Yes, so we are in opposition.
Okay, Maliba, your boss, on record,
Yes.
and I don't know whether he's your boss, you will
Which
confirm
one?
that. The president, the boss of everybody,
Yes.
is the boss of every other person in the country, but then strategically, to you,
Yes.
in the earlier days of his presidency, said that, he would wish to have a robust opposition. He appreciates that there's need for that. Fast forward.
What happened?
Is he killing the same opposition that he wished to be robust? And when we're talking about opposition, what exactly are we referring to? Looking at the numbers in the National Assembly, and now that you talk about DAP being part and parcel of opposition, it's confusing for a moment.
Linda, the Constitution 2010 does not talk about opposition.
Okay.
So if you are going to look at oppositionist politics from the old thinking, then we will have this conversation. This conversation is yesterday's conversation, not today.
Okay.
Because the Constitution 2010 grants us a participatory governance framework where we as a people participate in the administration of public matters continuously. So what we have in Parliament, for example, is the minority and the majority.
Yes.
The word opposition is for purposes of us having this discussion. And then that takes me to the role, probably the bigger concept of what we refer as oppositionist politics. Largely, it's oversight. We as a people decided in 2010 that the role of oversight should be domiciled in Parliament as an institution. Then in Article 10, we gave ourselves further that particular role, that we are part and parcel of that particular process. But before Article 10, and even as we came up with Parliament, I think in the articles in 90s, We already had Article 1 and Article 2. So from where we are, has the president, for example, hurt multipartyism? No. Has he done anything to injure pluralism? No. What the president has simply done is to look for brains across the nation. And you know, why I find we people chuckling at it quite funny is that individuals have got rights.
Right.
The Bill of Rights is actually very robust. So when Mbadi, for example, is headhunted, Mbadi is not ODM. When Wandai is headhunted, there is the person of Wandai, and the primacy of Wandai, the person, supersedes the conversation we are having in here. So Wandai has a right to serve Kenyans in whatever capacity. He will resign. So the business about the opposition having been killed is neither here nor there. We are stuck in time because we have refused to embrace the Constitution 2010. We still call cabinet secretaries ministers. We still call the minority the opposition. We need to move on.
All right.
For the sake of conversation, and starting with your boss, you are a strategic communications individual down there, and therefore you should have perhaps reminded the president, please don't say opposition, Mr. President, say minority.
It was audience. There's something called audience segmentation, and you as a comms person do know that. So when the president is out there and knows that the lingua franca, the easiest way of actually passing the point, but then for an evidence-based platform like this one, this evening, we cannot do the same thing.
So in this case, we stick to minority, majority.
But for oppositionist politics, that is the business number one of the House. Whether you are in the majority party or minority party, the role of oversight is given to Parliament by we the people. So you don't have to actually be on this other side to do what is called opposition. I'll give you an example. What I would call my rural, even though I vote in Nairobi, my rural senator, for example, is elected on UDA, one Dr. Boni Khalwale. But when government makes mistakes, he calls them out. That is his role, by the way.
That is true.
Yeah.
And you want to tell me that this is not going to hurt parliamentary democracy in any way. And I'm glad that we have an individual who's handling these questions to do with multipartyism. And perhaps then we welcome them to come in and as well speak to this matter.
Mr. Mwita.
Yeah, I think I want to agree with my friend Maliba that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is talking about minority and majority parties, not opposition. But I think also the president has a leeway to select anyone from a minority or majority parties to join the cabinet. But the implication it has on the multi-partyism politics we have is what we need to really look at. If you look at how and the people the president went for from the minority party, it is like clipping the ODM party, the powers. ODM in Azimio is one of the strongest parties. In fact, it is almost 90% Azimio. Yeah, when you take the two deputy party leaders from ODM, you take the chairman of ODM, you take the minority leader of ODM from parliament, what are you telling us?
The president is a politician, perhaps to play the devil's advocate and agree to what it is that Arnold says. He is a politician. It is in his best interest to say, let us vote six-piece. It is in his best interest to make sure that the House, he has the majority, so that in the event that he presents something, then this gets to sail through. And therefore, is there anything wrong with that? Why would the opposition or perhaps the minority accept to this, knowing very well that it could injure their activities in Parliament?
But when you look at our Constitution, Article 2, I think, or so, it says we are a multi-party democratic state. It is in the best interest of the president to protect that constitutional provision and not poach members of the strongest political party in the opposition to his government. What is his political interests going forward? Is it about looking at 2027 or killing the opposition?
Is the president campaigning for 2020?
I have a question, just a follow-up question on that. You say it's in his best interest to protect it. What interest is that? Can you clarify to us, how does it benefit him to do that?
I understand that he was sworn in by the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So he must protect every provision of the Constitution. We can agree to disagree, but allow the institutions, the political parties to function as constituted, right? And Article, I think 97 or so, 98, you don't poach the best from the main opposition party to come. What is the interest of the president?
Okay.
Can I correct something?
Just
a second.
Just a second. But we've seen this happen quite a few times in history. This is not the first time. In fact, it's one of the things that Kenyan presidents do, to dangle, the posts and perks to stars in the opposition, or in the minority, as you decide to call it. And then at the same time, the poor only get empty pots. We've seen that script being repeated quite a few times. Why is it so hard for a Kenyan president to actually uphold and protect that bit of the constitution?
That is the question we have.
What's your opinion on this?
It should be that the minority parties should be left to oversight government. We already have the government in place with majority in parliament, and also in the Senate. Why do you go for the minority party to come and bolster your agenda as a government, and you say, as a president, you are actually going to create a broad-based government by taking people, the leaders from the minority party?
Right.
It seems that you are actually interested in killing the spirit of multi-party.
Is there a benefit to not? Is there a benefit, and also conversely, is there a risk? Is there a punishment for doing this, for poaching these stars from different parties? Doesn't look like it.
If you look at the current structure of political parties and the political parties' law, I don't think there will be anything that will be happening going forward. We have had this spirit of multi-partyism since independence up to now, say for the period between 1969 and 1991. But if you look at how the political parties behave, we may not have, Kenyans may get a raw deal because the law is still very weak on how to hold these parties to account. So the president will get away with it.
All right. On that note, we want to take a short break. I know you're itching to comment on this.
Just setting the record straight.
Absolutely. We will come back so you can have plenty of time to do that. You may not be able to finish your point. We're just going on break right now. All right? Yeah. And as well as the other members of our panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep it right here. Send in your questions. The SMS line, the WhatsApp number are on your screen, or they should be on your screen right now. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it.
We had a few comments from Mr. Mwita, but let's have the rest of the people in the studio to chime in on this matter. Let's start with you, Ruth.
Well, I think, as I said before while we were off air, that I believe my two brothers here are beating around the bush. And why are they beating around the bush? We must ask ourselves, where is the president coming from? By making these decisions to pretty much kill opposition in the eyes of majority, which has, in my opinion, has not been killed per se, because we have other parties that have stood strong and said they're not going to join the president and the government. Where is the president coming from? He's coming from a Gen Z revolution, where people, the Gen Z, the young people, exposed his weaknesses and the weaknesses in his government. And therefore he's thinking that, you know what, a majority of the people who share the opinion of Gen Zs also are coming from opposition-affiliated political parties. We must be honest with ourselves. That a great percentage of the people who are on the streets, a good number of them subscribe to the ideologies of the opposition. And in fact, many of them were very disappointed when they heard that, first of all, Raila Odinga's ODM is dialoguing with the president. So the president is coming from a point of view where he has been exposed and is thinking the only way out is, let me bring these people that the majority subscribe to their opinion, and if I bring them on board, it shall quell the anger that the people do have.
It looks like it's working.
It appears like it is working, but I keep saying the Gen Zs are still a ticking time bomb. They might look like they are quiet. Today there was no demonstration. Last week there seemed to be some activity. Next Thursday things might not even be happening. But the real issue is that the president has not addressed the core issues that the young people are raising. Because why did we get here? Had we not had the Gen Z revolution, the truth of the matter is the cabinet would have been as it is, true or false. Things would have remained, the status quo would have remained. So for us to get to where we are coming from a point of young people going to the streets, telling the president, number one, finance bill has to fall, and it falls, and he thinks things are okay, and they start telling him, you know what, your cabinet needs to go, corruption needs to be addressed, and a lot of other demands that he has still not met. And he thinks the way forward is for me to appoint members of the opposition. And if I do, number one, he's thinking that, you know what, I have won. I have brought on board the people that are subscribing to the opinions of the Gen Zs. And therefore the Gen Zs will be satisfied. So we must speak the truth, which is the president did this because he was cornered. He had no way out. And he thinks he has succeeded. Give it a couple more months, things will boil again.
All right. Mr. Pandey?
Very well. We are deep into the conversation, but it's imperative that I say hello to our viewers and then say the following. One, it's such a good time to live in Kenya, a time when my colleague and friend Maliba acknowledges that the president has indeed invited brains and capacity into government. So to acknowledge that previously there was an acute deficiency of capacity in the side of the ruling party. And I must state up front that I am a life member of the ODM party. So coming from that background, we're looking at a time when the president has acknowledged that there is something that he needs from the opposition party, the ODM party, and the Azimio coalition. And having said that, it's only important that I reason the fact that the counter-argument by my friend Muita looks to suggest that there is a limitation in law that prohibits the president from appointing persons from parties in the minority coalition into government. There is no such law in Kenya. There is no such provision in Kenya. The president is at liberty to work with anybody from within his ruling coalition, from without in the minority party, and from elsewhere. He could go into the public and choose anyone, even amongst you, to be cabinet members. And having stated that fact, the other important thing to say is I think we are at that Damascus moment when the president has realized that the nation indeed belongs to all of us and not just the shareholders that initially were prescribed by the deputy president. And so with that background, it's imperative and apparent that all of us acknowledge that we have something to contribute in building this nation that we call Kenya, building this common agenda that we call the Republic of Kenya, and devoid of political party affiliation. It would be a good thing to have a strong minority party keeping the government in check and ensuring that the order of the day aligns with the wishes of the masses and the people for that matter. But there is also an argument that is suggesting or looks to suggest that the best in ODM, the best in Azimio were only Mbadi and Honorable Opio and I. That is absolutely not the correct position. I would tell you that you'll see in Parliament the moment Mbadi takes up his role as Cabinet Secretary in charge of the National Treasury, and the Honorable Pio and I takes his role as the Minister in charge of Energy. We will have yet another vibrant platform for young leaders, perhaps the likes of Babu Owino coming in, perhaps even more younger people with capacity
like
to adduce the agenda of the Azimio and the ODM party.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Like me, I could be in Parliament the next moment. You don't know. I'm a live member of ODM and I could be there.
All right. All right. Ms. Ujewa, please.
No, so all these people are my friends. They always talk like this, and normally very silently at the back, with Wita as well, with the work that we do. But all of this is just a lot of political narrative and rhetoric. Because when we look at the Constitution, Article 3 actually gives every individual the obligation to defend the Constitution. What we're discussing here is checks and balances and accountability. And that is very difficult to have when we don't have strong institutions. Institutions also include political parties. And what Mita is talking about is the leadership of these political parties. Not the individuals being the best individuals, but they are also core leaders in this political party. That does a lot to any institution. Even the company that I work in, if I was to leave it and to be poached by another, we have seen a lot of business companies do that. Microsoft did that with Apple, and any competitive company does that. So it's strategic. I think that where we are as a country, as Ruth has mentioned, it's a very strategic opportunity. It's a turning point. It's brought about by young people. But I do believe that the choices that are being made are very old political playbook choices. And the president has inherited a population that is not the same population that Uhuru left, or neither is it the one that Kibaki left. And he has to deal with this very young, growing quickly, access to information, digitally connected population that's extremely frustrated, let me repeat that. So you're talking about an administration that has to create 2 million jobs annually. And we're having banter of people traveling to the counties as to continue campaigning. He does not understand the dire situation of this country at this moment. And that is the the concern for me. We need a government that is accountable, manages their resources, and is able to articulate how they are spending it and why they are spending it, and for us to know our debt and what we're paying for. If we do not have those answers, we will be back here. No matter how many parties you involve, no matter how many faces you try to include in the cabinet, nobody will care. Because everyone on the ground who is in rural area, 80% of this country, is starving the same. And they will come back and continue to frustrate that same leadership.
True. Just before my colleague jumps in and before Arnold claims his right of rebuttal, I have a question for you. It's starting to look like our political leadership are being asked to do something that is different to their nature. That to uphold the Constitution looks like political suicide, at least at the moment. How do we come out of that?
That's actually the battle that we're witnessing. And what a lot of the Gen Zs and young people are pushing for is just following the Constitution and allowing for institutions to work. If people were hired according to their expertise, we would not be here. We wouldn't. But when you have people in power, where we are seeing as cabinet secretaries, they are incompetent. Let's just be clear. Incompetent. We have met with ministers who don't understand their sectors. And you're talking about a country where the average age is 19. Someone who is running a particular docket and they cannot understand the population that they are leading is only going to lead to chaos. So what they need to be doing is just following system, allowing institutions to work, and dissent doesn't necessarily mean critique. Dissent is also good. We have seen countries where opposing sides have to come together and form a coalition. They have to find a way to be able to have an ideology that works for the nation. For us, the ideology is the Constitution. It's already handed down to us. So everyone has a role to play. But when people come together and say, because of the leadership of this party, we have to go in this particular direction in regards to a particular bill, we've completely lost the plot.
Nerima, George is coming in after this. Are you in agreement with the president's speak, at least the latest speak?
I've stopped listening to him.
You've stopped listening to him.
I'm not sure what
if you realize there are a couple of them that have been picked based on expertise,
I think
would it not be fair to allow the process to take its course to the level of vetting so that we can confidently say that then these individuals, are here?
There are some who should not be there, Linda.
Interesting.
There are some who shouldn't even make the list.
We will be coming to get to understand who are these ones. George.
Okay, so let's come to Maliba here, and we begin with, you've been noting a lot of things.
Yes.
And we will perhaps, when you look at the events of today, when the nomination of the AG nominee, that is Dorcas Odwor and Beatrice Askul-Moe, there even was a stipulation of their qualifications, their experience in her long and distinguished career as a jurist, blah, 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 blah. That was about the AG nominee. And then about Ms. Beatrice, she specialized skills in development and management of community affairs, a good bio that was given. And that seemed to have set the tone today, because if you notice perhaps on X and even in the socials, there is not so much hue and cry about these two nominees. Quick question, in the presence of what you've said, in the context of what you've said, that the opposition, that the Constitution, we all check this government, but then in this checking, there seems to be some dislike for dissent, as she's saying, but in the same context, there seems to be preference in how we even communicate as the government communicates, because now there seems to be, in the first batch, these things were not issued, these things were not said.
I'll respond to a question, and I'll ask kindly to allow me to respond to a few things, so that they don't go unaddressed, because if they go unaddressed, they can actually contribute to the malinformation, disinformation, and misinformation that is going out there. But quickly, first of all, I would love us to go a step further and look at the society that we lead. Kenya does not have more than 3 million degrees, a country of 55 million people, for example. So if we were to look at the Constitution in absolute, if you limit leadership and representation to 3 million, that is isolationism in some way. But we will get to that. We are not a competent court. Having said that, when we have these conversations about competence and incompetence against what performance tool, these are very plastic arguments, and that is why I would love us, when we have got these conversations, we do not turn these important conversations and sessions like this into just social media banter, good old Bungele Mwananchi type of argument. Like, I'll go back using that example and just walk you back. When you say that 4 people are the same as a party, ODM is a party of about 3.5 million people. Wandai is not ODM. Mbadi is not ODM. Oparanya is not ODM. Joho is not ODM.
How many
Those
people
3.5.
who are the members of, say,
That's why I'm just bringing you home. That Wandai can actually even die, leave alone leaving ODM. He could die. Does that mean ODM is dead? It's not. So it's important for us to actually get to this particular point, that ODM is an institution. Has ODM complained? No. ODM has not complained. Quickly, I saw my friend Pande saying that there was a lack of capacity and brains in the government. You know, in Article 10, the issue about inclusion is very, very important. ODM is actually a very vibrant party. There is a population of people who really believe in it. But perennially, it has been in opposition. What makes you think that the president, perhaps, has not brought a few of them as an act of affirmative action, so that they also feel this other side?
I believe
who told you?
Said it.
Who told you? I'm just saying, what makes you think? The president cannot say everything. But again, in leadership, you are not in a place where you can explain everything in prose. It's difficult. Quickly, Range said that you take. I do not think that human beings with agency and voice, adult men, can actually be taken like items. Those people are not items on a shelf. You cannot just pick them. Again, she spoke about Gen Z's issues. It would be unfair for us to actually sit here and say that the president did not respond to the issues. They asked for bringing down the finance bill. He did. They spoke about reconstituting and rethinking his governance. He sent people home, then he's reconstituting it as we speak. They wanted him to have dialogue. He is doing that. The thing is this: we cannot have a place where a section of a community really thinks that their word is final and its law is cast. As in, even the president and the government of the day has a brain, has a thinking. They also have got a way of addressing those issues. No one dislikes what actually has been happening. This is what we signed up for as a people in 2010. That in this country, you should be able to protest and ask for something. First of all, I actually detest the fact that there was so much of human cost for us to get what I consider very bare minimum asks. Those many lives we see did not have to die. We did not have to go this way to actually achieve this. It is unfair. That cannot be defended. But the point is this, that no one really dislikes what is actually happening. There is no dislike. It will be important for actually to say that the president has responded to Gen Zs, and that what he is doing is part and parcel of responding to that and bettering the conversation. So let us not say that he is not heard and he does not understand. Again, there are 8.4 million people who qualify for Gen Zs in this country. There are 7.2 million people who qualify as millennials. These 7.2 are all voters. The 8.4 that I speak about who are millennials are not entirely. About 5.4 of them are the ones who actually, what you will consider, or the age of majority. Now, Kenya reaches its age, or rather the peak of its youth bulge between now and 2027. And by 2027, we expect that 18s to 24, people who fall properly within the Gen Zs, will actually be 14 million.
Yes.
So as we move towards that end, we actually have to think things differently. But Maranga, to just push this conversation quite quickly so that then I don't take a lot of time, I want to tell you that we did not get here by an act of one person. We got here because of how, number one, we went to vote. We took an expensive government to run. The people that took it after that probably did not have experience, and we got there. But then there are a few things. Naturally, there is growth. There's one thing that we've not spoken about. One of the reasons why Gen Zs are storming the national platform, or rather the national altar, I don't know what word to use, is because within the youth sector there is no growth. People who are youth activists in political parties, I'm talking about youth officials in political parties, wababa wa miaka 40 bado wamekatalia kwa political parties. Now, where do you expect those to go? So, just quickly, Maringa, just quickly, so that then I don't lose that train of thought.
Yes.
In political parties, there is no movement. Millennials are stuck there. When you come to government, the government has also been stuck with old policies. For example, the Youth Enterprise Development Fund is a Kibaki model. Things have moved on so far. So policies have also not caught up. There are a few things government would have done. Like, for example, why has the government not done the National Youth Council elections for 10 years?
Let's take
that should actually have been taken that. And then finally, Maringa, before you go.
We have a caller.
The youth sector.
We have a caller.
The youth sector.
Arnold Maliba, let us be fair.
Really? You guys will kill my point.
A caller on the line. We have a caller on the line.
No, I am not a youth
we have a caller on the line. Good evening, sir.
Rashid from Lugari.
Good evening, Mr. Rashid.
Unaongea na Rashid kutoka Lugari.
Yes, Mr. Rashid, can we boost that speaker so that we can hear Mr. Rashid? Rashid, how are you?
I'm fine.
Talk to us, please.
Yeah, mimi nitaongea Kiswahili.
Tafadhali, karibu.
Nawaona mna maono mzuri sana kwa studio.
Asante.
Lakini sasa mimi najiuliza kwa nini sasa hawa watu wa ODM wanaungana na serikali, na ilihali ya vijana wanalalamika, wanasema hawa wajiungi na hawana kiongozi, lakini sasa serikali hata haijali maslahi ya Wakenya hata saa hii.
Vizuri sana Mr. Rashid, tunashukuru sana kwa swali lako. Una jambo lingine ungependa kusema? Una jambo lingine ungependa kutuambia kabla tukuachilie tafadhali?
Jambo lingine lenye ningependa kuuliza ni kuhusu sasa, unaona ile story ya ule muuaji mwenye alikuwa anaua watu wakirushwa kwa Kware.
Naam.
Sasa haongelee hiyo kuhusu huyo mtu penye alipelekwa, penye vile kuliendelea, hakuna mtu mwenye anaongea saa hii. Wamenyamaza, wanaongea tu mambo zingine saa hii.
Aya, asante sana Mr. Rashid. Salimia watu wa Lugari. Thank you so much.
And Ruth Mbogo has been...
Just finish. Not a minute. Let me just finish. Let me just finish.
Actually, I was going to say, the risk you run, letting Maliba say everything he wants, that is going to spoil your script. He's going to come in.
Let us proceed.
And in fact,
Maliba, back to you.
let me just... Even has feedback as you ruminate on it. It's Kituku tell Maliba the government is already a disgrace to the people. The Gen Z revolution has brought forward a bunch of opportunists from ODM who waited to capitalize, saying the president has had the Gen Z is really shocking. So ruminate over that. Then Wita.
So I think allow me to contribute and also respond to what my friends here have said. It was wrong for the president to pick members from the opposition party, the minority party, if I may say so, to the cabinet. I do not think that Kenya Kwanza lacks people with competence whom we could pick to be able to, include in his cabinet. Number two, if you look at these parties, ODM and UDA, the ideological orientations of them are totally different. One is a center-left, another one is a center-right party. Yeah? How do you say that now the Mbadis and the Johos and those people from ODM will be able to articulate the bottom-up economic transformation agenda? It is not really working. And also the timing. Why now? The Gen Zs were asking very particular questions around accountability, around corruption, around job creation. But you go way out of that to create a broad-based government. There was no problem, even when we were talking about a government of shareholders. They did not complain. There were very particular issues that the young people were asking. Where are they? Where are those issues here?
All right. And Mr. Mwita, just as you make that point, Jacob from Meru is on the line. Jacob, good evening.
Good evening to you.
How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. I would like to make a small contribution.
Please do.
I I think it is not fair. I have heard one of your speakers, Mr. Maliba, give an analogy that I don't think I agree with. The Gen Zs have an idea, but I think his party took advantage to make the changes that were not necessarily recommended by the Gen Zs. The ideas that the Gen Zs brought, one of them was to reconstitute the cabinet.
Right.
And the other issues that have been done by Kenya Kwanza have nothing to do with what the Gen Zs were calling for. So I don't agree. The Gen Zs should still be given a chance to air their views, and we must stop killing them. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Jacob from Meru.
Well, I want to respond to a couple of issues, and in the same spirit of trying to, get away from misinformation, Arnold Maliba has really misinformed us on a couple of issues. Number one, he questions why Kenyans are very concerned about the competency of the people who are being appointed, saying that, as a country, we have about 3 million degrees. And yet he himself, the position that he holds, he's very competent for it. In fact, for him to be considered for that position, Maliba is someone very well known to me, someone who has worked in the comms department for so many years and has done a lot of work in that department. Imagine, Maliba, if somebody else who with zero qualifications was given the job that you are given. So the Gen Zs, when they speak about competency, they are very serious about these things. The cabinet secretaries that have been appointed, just like Nerima said, some of them don't deserve to be on that list. Why? First of all, a good number of them have been allegedly involved in corruption scandals.
Would it not be proper to allow the parliament to do what it is?
Parliament will do its thing, but we are telling parliament in advance, the same way we told them during the finance bill, that if you dare approve people who we know very well, or people who have been, some who even have corruption cases still ongoing in court, then whose interest exactly are you serving? Second, we are going to talk about the fact that we are sitting here trying to make it look like by the president appointing a few members of ODM, opposition is dead. Remember that opposition was a coalition of very many political parties. And this is where I will bring in the parties that are left, that are saying, we are standing with the Mwananchi. We have DAP Kenya, led by Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, that have consistently said that, despite what is going on in ODM, our brothers, who were our brothers, we are going to stay and remain on course on the interests of the Mwananchi.
Are they not?
They are in government.
Allow us to speak this call, and then we'll come back to you, understand whether we're supposed to remove or to get this conversation about minority, majority, or opposition from parliament and bring it back to the field, because it's about the numbers in parliament.
And we've had 2 attempts.
Yes, but then we have Josiah.
Josiah from Kakamega. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
For the discussion. I'm okay. How are you? It is the corruption that is killing the economy. Corruption is a big killer. So instead of wondering who is coming into the cabinet, the issue is we need some people who can solve the issue, who can tackle corruption in the country. And that will heal the economy. Thank you.
All right, short and sweet. Thank you, Josiah from Kakamega. Ruth, you're making a point, please, just before we go on break.
I was making a point, and the point is this.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're in a coalition, people have different interests. Members of different political parties have different interests. When the president called for dialogue, all the political parties in Azimio went and sat and held their NEC meetings. And I attended my own NEC meeting at DAP Kenya. And for us to say we were not dialoguing, it was not the political party leaders' opinion. It was a National Executive Council meeting where everybody said, we are not going to join government. Because why? Last year, when Azimio went to the streets to protest against the high cost of living, what happened? People were killed, first of all. Let's talk about the 70 people who were killed that has never been addressed to date. Then secondly, the NADCO report came out, which was meant to address the issues that were being talked about, which was the high cost of living. Can I tell you, listeners, that not even a word by the name high cost of living featured in the NADCO report. And at that point, our party leader said, you know what, we are not even going to sign that document. So you can see opposition at work as we speak. And moving forward to the Gen Z revolution, we said, we are not going to negotiate with the president or even join his cabinet, because why would you join a cabinet that is not even, first of all, listening and paying attention to what Kenyans are saying. I had Maliba here saying that the Gen Zs are about 8 million and they were not voters. And he was trying to suggest that because they were not voters, they're not important and their opinion does not count. He even said that apparently we cannot be held ransom by a group of people who think their opinion matters most. And he then brought up the fact that they are not voters.
I didn't say
they
that.
Are Kenyans. You actually did.
I didn't say
play it
that.
back.
Okay.
They are Kenyans. They are Kenyans. And as by virtue of them being Kenyans, whether they voted or not, they must be listened to.
Okay.
And by the way, just so you know, these Gen Zs had the blessings of their parents who are saying, you know what, I'm too old to go to the streets. You are going to represent my views on the streets. So let this government not be fooled that these opinions, that these young people who are on the streets were only speaking for themselves. They were speaking for themselves, for their parents, for their grandparents who could not make it to the streets. You could see even videos on TikTok. I saw a very interesting video on TikTok of a parent, a mother, praying for the son and saying, "Dear Lord, bless my son as he goes to..."
know.
You saw that, right?
Yeah, we did.
And as I finish,
allow us to take a short
Let me
break, and
just...
then we come back to in the best interest of time, as well as the commercials that we have. So we take a quick short break and then we come back on that very note.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter. Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora.
Indeed, welcome back. You're watching The People's Court with me, George Maringa, Linda Alela and Victor Muyakane, as well as our panel, which, of course, as you would know, is getting very heated on set and off set. But even before we come back to the jostling points here, there are two people that we want to bring in. Nerima Wako, first of all, coming back to you again. When you look at these issues, perhaps you would ideally represent the youth in this panel tonight. Do you think perhaps the issues, it has been said, the president did not adhere to the Gen Z issues, as it were. But the selection of this appointment to the cabinet, as well as the IEBC, in terms of duration, do you think there was a tactic that was used to try and delay and to be able to shift attention to these matters, because the selection panel has up to 3 months, those are 90 days, and then you look at the appointments, that takes another couple of weeks, as it were.
So I'm here representing civil society.
Yes.
We work a lot with young people, and for me it's the voice of the citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, you're right, the narrative has shifted. And I wouldn't be surprised, no one has to tell me it's not political or science, that the selection committee that's going to come up is going to be half ODM, the other half coming from UDA. That's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And what's going to happen is people are going to map who belongs to who and where. And that's unfortunate, because it goes back to the discussion that we've been having earlier in terms of institutions and what that means. But what needs to be at the fore of the conversation is what Rashid mentioned when he called. People have died. No one is being held accountable for that. We have not seen any resignations. We have not seen any cases being put forward. We have not had even families being told that they will be compensated or any justifications for that. Mm-hmm. This is what needs to be at the fore of the conversation. We're talking about life here. And we're talking about young people's lives being found, young people being found in abandoned toilets in Gumo Estate. And we are acting as if this is normal. What part of this allows us to sleep every day and wake up and think talking about political positions is of importance right now?
For the records, Japhet Koome resigned.
But then they still
Is that not enough?
I know it's not.
It is
actually
not enough.
Rima, just
that is not enough. Well, of course it can't be enough. It's just because you said
we still have rogue police officers walking around spraying bullets at peaceful protesters. We still have bodies riddled with bullets at City Mortuary, where we've had of 50, and we've only accounted for 60 that we've seen dead, and some are still missing. And this is a country we're calling democratic?
Okay.
Come on. There's something seriously wrong with that.
Do we still have Kennedy?
We have a caller from Bomet. Sir, are you still with us? Kennedy from Bomet?
Maybe not.
Yes.
Yes, Kennedy, what's your point? How are you?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
Zungumza tafadhali, tunakusikia.
Yes, my concern is...
Yes, sir.
First of all, let me thank you in the studio.
Mm-hmm. Asante.
Yes, and in fact, my concern is to be very sincere and honest. Ruto has failed the Kenyans. Because when you try to look at it, in fact, what he's doing, yeye ni kuwasawadia marafiki zake position. For instance, you find that, like now I saw somebody like Chuma from Aita Chuma.
Right.
Ruto is saying, sitakuacha wewe ndio tulianza kuunda serikali pamoja.
Right.
Sasa kulingana na sisi vile tunaona yeye position anaendelea kuwasawadi marafiki zake. And in the real sense, you find that now the Kenyans, in fact, tunaumia.
All
so,
right.
Mimi ile kitu ningependa kusema ni kwamba Ruto has failed us and is worse than Uhuru and even Kibaki regime and even Moi regime. So where we are heading as Kenyans, we even don't know and we don't understand. Because if you can look at it, you find that The Kenyans, the young Kenyans, they are killed. They are so much wamegandamishwa, hakuna kazi. Sasa ukiangalia, in fact, there is nowhere Ruto is taking us. Surely, I'm coming from Bomet, and I really feel it because I see what is going on in his government.
Asante.
Yes, and then, yes.
Asante. Thank you so much, sir, and have a good night. You're making your point, please.
I'm done.
You're done. Panda is...
Tunakuja upande wako. That's right.
So, I was going to say a couple of things. One is to try to address the points raised by our caller Rashid from Meru, I believe.
Your mic is malfunctioning. Let's have you respond, please.
So quickly, number one, Rangi spoke about ideology versus, and I need to bring in a word he avoided. Today, we are running government largely by policy, and we're talking about evidence-based policies. Ideology is a good thing. It's still so much pillar in politics. But you see, I believe sometimes might not be based on truth. So, and then he got it wrong when he says that ideologically, Kenya Kwanza and, or rather UDA and ODM are different. Rangi works with political parties, and he would know that except for the Communist Party, all the other 90 parties in Kenya are center of the left. They are social democrats largely. And how do you know that? Just look at their constitutions and look at their manifestos. Two, this is a question I would want to ask. Why would people who have willingly, gleefully said they are partyless complain about choices of other parties?
Okay.
That beats my thinking. They have got a right to actually say whatever they want, but I do not get why a person who has chosen to be partyless would have an issue with another party's decision. Quickly, let's do this. I was talking about draining the youth sector. The youth swamp has got a lot of alligators that need to be drained. From the political parties, all youth alligators in political parties, ancient of days that still live there, need to be, these movements need to move there because Gen Zs have nowhere to go. The older millennials have refused into political parties. Two, even in the civil society, there are some Methuselahs there who also have made it difficult for Gen Zs to even grow. That's why they're storming the national platform, because they are unable to grow down here.
So what
then in government...
What do you suggest as a solution to that?
A solution to that is that as people speak to us fluent English about how change should be done in government, it should be systemic and it applies to everybody. Then quickly, I need to say this. I've heard Nirima Wako here say eloquently about government has not spoken about compensation and everything else. I know she runs governance programs. She knows something called the budget cycle. They are accusing the government of the day of unilateral decisions. They are telling the government to follow the law. And she wants the government to actually have come up with a payment, a compensation scheme, 3 weeks, when Parliament was not sitting. She knows the budgeting cycle. And you see, imagine even if the president were to pronounce that, that will still be unilateral because there is public participation, there is much more to that. So
but the government
what
also enjoys a lot of discretionary spending.
That is not how it works.
Budgets.
When it comes to money, that is not how it works. I'm just saying, Parliament...
Why are the rules different when it's about compensation?
Show me.
Why are the rules different when it comes to compensation?
Show me.
And when it comes to renovations,
it still goes to Parliament.
Stuff,
our budgets are legislated, unless you forget that. It is legislated, you have to go to Parliament. It has got a public participation element to it. I'm just saying that Parliament resumed this week. Where would we have done that miracle? Let us also not get, or rather get consumed with the regime bashing for an end to it.
All right.
Then finally,
Mr. Pandit,
finally,
we will come back to you. I assure you.
So that we move, we actually risk getting to a point where we are
he had a point
paralysis.
Yet to make.
A paralysis.
Let him finish the point. We'll come back to you. I assure you.
I actually will.
I will give you the time.
Okay.
I will give you the time. Please.
Thank you for saving us from Maliba. One thing that is actually difficult before I respond to Rashid, it's actually difficult to be Maliba because you risk speaking from both sides of the mouth. I agree with him on a couple of things, but I disagree with him on the fact that government has to wait for Parliament to pronounce itself on compensating persons that have lost their lives in the police brutality that we've witnessed over the past couple of months. This is why Maliba sitting here is aware that government is today putting up a supplementary budget from all state departments. Where is the place of the young person that lost their lives, that has been abducted, that is unaccounted for? And you know, you don't have to answer me today.
The new CS for teacher will answer that.
The other thing that I want to respond to is Rashid, who says and is actually disturbed by the fact that ODM looks to be working with government. ODM is not working with government.
It's working for government.
A couple in government. ODM cannot work for government.
It's working for government.
A couple of ODM party officials have been invited, like Maliba states, as part of the brains that the government needs to move on in serving the Kenyans. And this is why ODM stands for social democracy, stands for the people, stands for the will of the common man. And through the Gen Zs, the common man has spoken. We are acknowledging that these are representatives of Kenyans, these are representatives of their families, parents who cannot come out of the streets to demonstrate. But one thing that you will agree with me about is the fact that being Raila Odinga and being ODM party is quite a difficult task. Last year, when the Finance Bill 2023-24 was at play, I spent over 20 hours on behalf of the coalition Azimio, on behalf of the ODM party, unpacking the ills, including the, the fuel levy, including all that we had in terms of the housing levy and so forth, that would affect direly the people of Kenya. Our party leader and the coalition leader, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, invited Kenyans to join Azimio in nationwide protest against the finance bill then and against the budget then, against the cost of living. But what happened? Azimio, and in fact ODM party, was profiled as a people that were motivated by looting and destroying property and causing anarchy. And in the end of it, we lost lives, unaccounted for, and ODM looked like the loser, not even Azimio. Each time in this nation, things go south. Kenyans come in numbers calling for the hand of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga to come rectify the situation. Why is it that when it's about forming government, when it's about bringing sanity in running the affairs of the Republic of Kenya, it is not fit for ODM party?
Mr. Pandey,
just a moment, let me complete my point.
Why is it that actually told Raila Odinga to sit this one out? That's point number one. I want you to respond to that.
And he was proud of it.
Yeah. And he actually said he was proud of it. Number two, the protests that you mentioned, the ones that preceded the NADCO conversation, the ones that preceded that discussion, who was the main beneficiary of those protests? Who's the main beneficiary of the protests right now? Who's the main beneficiary? Which party or which personalities from which party appear to have benefited from the conversation around Gen Z? And third question, tell me, are the members that were selected for cabinet the only people who've got what it takes to sort out the situation, as you call it?
Interesting. As to the beneficiaries, I may not be confident to answer because that's not in my purview. But I would say, like I stated earlier, that last year, ODM party and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga looked to have lost the fight against the rising cost of living and the overtaxation on the finance bill last year. Okay? Fast forward, we are calling for reforms in government. We're calling for reconstruction of government. We're calling for, stabilizing the democracy that we have in the Republic of Kenya. Why is it that the Right Honorable Raila Odinga should not be a contributor? Why is it that the ODM party must be relegated to a perpetual opposition party who in this country apportioned ODM the role of the opposition and not any other party? And today I'll come to you with the Bible. If you read Numbers chapter 15, verse 11 to 15,
I think you'd find...
I'll finish my contribution. And this is it. This is the gist of the contribution. Moses has a conversation with God. Mm-hmm. It is about the people of Israel asking for meat to eat. Yep. over and above every other demands that they have. This time they're asking for meat and everybody wants meat. This is the situation we find ourselves as a country, so where we ask Moses and Joshua, as we call him, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, for meat every other time, for demands that he cannot fulfill as an individual, and we expect him to give it. We must give people the responsibility that they can fulfill, and Kenyans must accept the responsibility, just like the Gen Zs have accepted the responsibility that they are equal Kenyans, that they are up to the task to reform and to state the agenda that has caused the president to respond to specific issues in this country. Kenyans must come out of their comfort zones and play the role of ODM party and play the role of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, because nobody is a perpetual opposition.
Mr. Mwita, please, before...
But even as you come in, when he speaks about this and ask who apportioned ODM, the role of opposition, first of all, we look at the numbers. Second of all, we're looking at this conversation that they had where it was necessary, or of course they suggested that it was necessary to have an official opposition office or perhaps leader. And we also look at this conversation of winner takes it all. Is ODM, or would we say, Pande in this case, speaking from two sides of the mouth?
I think the ODM party is being insincere to the people of Kenya. Yeah, when you look at the outcomes of the 2023 demonstrations, which were largely led by Azimio, and ODM being a bigger party in that coalition, the NADCO report is extremely underwhelming. Yeah, when you look at what we are going to do, or the reforms to implement, is underwhelming. It is forming offices for the people. Yeah? How is it going to affect the livelihoods of the people who are on the streets in demonstrations or who are jobless? And even currently, the political context did not call for any kind of a broad-based government. They are lying to us, right? This is an opportunistic kind of venture that the ODM party is taking. We must tell you the truth, Opande, that you are wrong on this particular occasion. You cannot be able to campaign on a very different, manifesto, and then come here and join a different political party to form government. What are you going to solve?
ODM has not joined any other party.
I must respond.
We're coming to you.
Maliba will get to you. I must respond to Philip here. When he asks the question, who assigned ODM the perpetual opposition? The people. The people shall.
And why must it
when
be
they were voting,
why
they
must
did not
it
vote
be
for
ODM
ODM to be in government. When they were voting, they voted for UDA this time round to be in government. And ODM at that particular point to be the minority, meaning they were assigned with the duty of keeping the government, checking the government and ensuring that the government is doing what it needs to do for the Mwananchi. And this is where my point comes in. How do you propose, as he's saying, because you are the minority, unless the constitution changes, they will still remain minority. How do they propose then to be checking a government that they are a part of? Because the reality of the matter is they are part of the government. And if you ask me to, in all honesty, ODM's statement after their leaders had been appointed into cabinet secretary positions, distancing themselves from the appointments, was just a reaction after they realized that the people were not with them anymore. And I can tell you for sure, for example, speaking from a point of view of DAP, ever since ODM joined government, because let us call it for what it is, since ODM joined government, the number of young people who are reaching out to me personally saying, Ruth, how can I join DAP? Because they realize that we are in ODM, or they were in ODM, to be a voice for the people, to be a voice of reason, or to be a voice that checks the government. And so they're like, if our people are joining government, we still believe that we want to check the government. Where can we go where people are checking the government? DAP.
Okay. All right. Well, hence the question.
These two contributions are about the ODM party, and I have the moral authority to respond to them. One is, Ruth here speaks on behalf of the DAP party, and passionately so from the beginning of the conversation, was that she's taken over, and their party leader has taken over the role of the opposition. Why do we feel some less of bitterness in their contribution on the absence of ODM in their contribution? Why don't you take up that responsibility of the official opposition leader?
But we have.
I'm coming to the point. It is wrong to say that you are the official opposition leader and to accuse ODM party and complain about the laxity of ODM party.
No,
if you feel, you know, confident that you're actually acting on behalf of on Kenyans, then that is exactly what you're supposed to do. And MITA keeps on prescribing what
we're
ODM.
Out of time. We're out of time.
Yes. MITA prescribes what ODM should be. That is not what ODM is. ODM has a constitution. ODM is a party of the people, a party of over 5 million Kenyans. Maliba puts it at 3.5.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. So we have
point, please,
what we subscribe to.
My point, Pande said that I would speak from both sides of the mouth. The viewers and even you guys moderating have realized that he is speaking from four sides of the mouth. On the left, on the right, down and up. He is all over. He is supporting. Quickly, he was unable to answer the question on beneficiaries. That was an unfair question. When the people went to the streets, they were going to make Kenya better. So who are the beneficiaries? Kenyans and Kenya. Whether it is Wandai or Pande, they are Kenyans and they belong to Kenya. Unless you, Muyekane, has got somebody in mind you wanted to be a beneficiary. Outside of that, I don't know. Then, ODM does not own the opposition stand for Kenya. They don't own it. They have not patented it. No one should complain that they are not there. When Gen Z told Baba to sit out, they told Baba to sit out of the demonstrations. Baba then proceeded to do other things, including talking to government, including ensuring that the country is stable. They told him to sit out of Maandamano, and he did that. He did not get into
still sitting out of Maandamano.
Yeah, so
why is Ruth complaining?
Then, here, Ruth speaks about DAP. I have got a little, and you know, but the DAP is my former party. My former party leader went to NADCO. He was appointed to be part and parcel of the NADCO process. He refused to sign that.
In this case,
but he has been going around telling government to implement the NADCO report. You refused the NADCO report, but you are telling us to implement it. That support structure, you know, you are opposing and supporting, biting, and then unapuliza kama panya is not a good way of doing things.
You want us to go back to the conversation of the 2010 constitution where the president opposed.
It's not the same. That is conflation. We will be conflating issues here. But then, the finally of finalies here on this particular issue is that if you look at the people who are seated in this room, I don't think there's anyone here beyond 40. If it's 40, just probably over, slightly over. Everybody else is young. There is a tinge, and I'm free to actually speak about this. We are complaining about Raila Odinga, who is 79 years old. He is on this side. What side are you on? What are you doing for Kenya? People who are so young, it is unfair that young people should be asking a 79-year-old to fight for them. What are you doing for? You can't fight for yourself. You can't fight for your country. You are complaining about a 79-year-old. Please fight for your country as well. So from where we sit, I think that there's too much ado about nothing. The president responded to Gen Z. The president is also dealing with other problems because, by the way, Gen Z's proposals are not the doctor's prescription that we have to follow it to the letter. Because also the rest of us have got a brain, have got experience, have got knowledge, and we have got a feeling. We are also shareholders here. We are not here to actually be ordered around left, and we ask them how far left can we go. They tell us jump. You ask them how high can we jump. It cannot be. And by the way, when I spoke about 8.4 million, I do not want to. I cannot be. Those are my brothers. Most of them are actually my mentees, and I'm actually so happy with what they are doing. By the way, as for Range,
time's up.
As for Range,
last point, please. Out of time.
Range is preaching bitterness. He's eating a lot of the bread of sorrow because you see him, an educated man, but there is a PhD holder here. He is here selling us fallacies, lies and stories, Majitu stories about how is Opio and I, Mbadi.
Last point, please.
And who is the other one? Joho. And Oparanya. How are those equal to ODM?
All right.
How are they
on that point?
Minority leader.
As you look down on the 3.5 million people
of ODM.
And
how can they not be ODM?
If the sun rose tomorrow and there's no Joho, will there be no ODM?
If we're going to talk about Raila Odinga's party leader as ODM, minority leader, we're talking about the chairperson.
Is ODM complaining?
Well, all right, fair enough.
All right, on that note,
Nerima, as you close it.
Please.
Yes, no, just a comment that Maliba made in terms of, Gen Z being heartedly.
the author of Majitu will come last.
If, you know, Gen Z being partyless, why do they care what people do with their parties?
That's it.
Very simply, this is the only country we have. And these are the people who are managing this country. If they are doing a bad job, we have every right to be vocal about it being done terribly. Because this country will crash if it's being led by people who are not leading it well. So they have every right to be able to share their grievances.
Fair enough.
Yes. Thank you. Oh, the first time.
All right.
Closing remarks.
But I think we need, I think both the majority side and minority side are wrong in terms of what is going on currently. The young people gave us an opportunity to be able to look at the issues affecting this country objectively and address them. But the manner in which we are going forward by forming a broad-based government is not what we wanted. It was never a problem. We should have listened to what the young people are saying. Issues of accountability, issues of wastage, issues of corruption, issues of inclusivity. They did not talk about ODM being out of government. And by ODM jumping into government as a way of stabilizing the country is actually a misnomer. And I want to tell Opande that we are not talking about BAMBA being in government or out of government. It is the people who voted in 2022. He became the second. And the president won. Why don't you stay in that particular space?
Linda,
and
are you going to help Doc? How many times are we going to remind him that ODM is not in government? How many times are we going to remind him that Mbadi
Do I have a right?
is not ODM?
Do I have a right to respond?
We have to close.
Do I have a right to respond?
Yes.
So,
close up.
Okay,
30 seconds, please.
I'm waiting for Mwita to finish.
Yes, so you are doing bad manners by jumping into government, support government. Those are bad manners. You are not helping the country.
Fair enough.
As you close up.
Very well. Firstly, Mwita cannot get my name right. My name is Pande, not Opande. It becomes difficult to argue with him on that substance alone. Secondly, how is it so difficult for Mwita to understand that the ODM party is not part of government? How is it so difficult for Mwita to understand that as a member, a non-member of the ODM party, he's unable to prescribe what ODM is? An old man told me 2 days ago, in a school meeting, a non-contributor to a school fund went claiming about wastage of funds in that school. And another old man told him that if funds are wasted in this school, and some funds are stolen, then they must have been stolen out of your pocket because you did not contribute. It is immoral for people that have distanced themselves from political party politics to prescribe what those political parties should look like. It is immoral for Kenyans who refuse to vote to prescribe what leaders should look like. It is immoral for people who distance themselves from public debate to say what a nation we should have.
You must contribute. My closing remark. Thank you, Ruth. Yes. In the spirit of immorality, it is immoral, as he has said, in the spirit of immorality, it is immoral to hijack a process that demanded a government to react to the citizens' concerns and you award yourselves positions.
We didn't ask for anything in government.
It is immoral. It is immoral not to listen to young people and say that just because they are partyless, they don't deserve to be heard and paid attention to. And as I close this debate once again, DAP, we do not have a shortage. We don't have a shortage of opposition. DAP is there. We are very strong. And when we criticize ODM, we are doing it out of love. They were our brothers. We wish them well in government.
Are they now your sisters?
All right.
They were their brothers. Are they your sisters now?
All right. Now,
we have lots of feedback. We have lots of
commentary as well. And we also have people who are messaging us on on X as well, on the points that we're making. As my colleagues are collating the feedback from you, our viewers, we want to thank you for choosing us to inform you. We also want to thank the gentlemen and ladies who've come into our studio and shared with us their different perspectives and their different opinions and so on. We appreciate you, and hopefully the people at home have some insight on what's happening in the country, and hopefully they have a way forward.
Well,
do we have some feedback?
Yes, Ndong at
A lot of it.
Long, and this is Linda Alela for the record. Ndong says people score it. George Maringa, Muyakani and Linda, Ruth is all wrong to argue as she does in the opposition. The president has full discretion to choose whomever he wants to be a CS. Once chosen, they resign from the party. After all, the Kenyan legal architecture has nothing. And as well as there's a gentleman here called David says, first of all, if you change the party which you were elected, you resign and seek fresh election. Ask Maliba this question, what do you call that? And of course, Maliba, this one is a tough one on you. They say, Wacha, please don't speak from both sides of the mouth. Stick to it. You were once in this party, you were on this party, you cannot claim to be so much in love and committed.
What is so much?
We cannot trust.
No, that is corruption.
Proceed.
That is corruption.
On our SMS line, hakuna mzazi anaweza kuruhusu mtoto wake aende kwa maandamano. Labda awe si mzazi kamili, I think to the blessings of the parents. Hawa watoto wengine wao walijitokeza kivyao. Rais Ruto hakuongea na ODM pekee, aliongea na kila mtu. Oteno Meshak from Kayole. And on our WhatsApp number, it's really funny how the 4 members now understand the bottom-up economic model, the 4 nominees, yet they were against it, criticizing the government. It's not fair to the people of Kenya, and more so to the Gen Z for the revolution. For the government, it's just the tip of the iceberg. That is Kituku watching us. And we thank you for your feedback, as well as, thanking our guests who have been here in studio. Anand Maliba, thank you so much for